The Browns make me want to walk into fire. And is it time to panic in the league office? Up next on this week's episode of the Commish's Corner. Welcome back to what is the week 2 version of the Commish's Corner. I am the Commish, and not a great week for me, not a great week for Browns fans. I know that this is going to be released before or probably during the Monday night games, and we still have several games to be decided. But I'm going to do this now for a couple of reasons. I'm just going to talk about the Browns, rant about the Browns, maybe, most of it. And I really only have a couple things to say on the fantasy side of things. But first things first, I got schlonged by Mike this week. I got the Mike schlong, if you could say so. But to really say my team could not have played much worse than they did this week, and I'll still be basically within the margin of error of every team except for like two of them. And so I haven't seen a bottom out yet like we've seen with some other teams. I haven't had a horrendous week yet, and I've played the highest scoring team both weeks. So, not much I can do there. We're building for the future, and we're still going to have a great season. The year I won, I also started 0-2, and so I'm really just following my championship blueprint from that year. And it worked then. Why wouldn't it work now? I think I've actually started 0-2 every year since the year I won as well. But really, the thing is maybe could be a new year for a new winner. Zach, Paul, maybe even the Hood Wagon. This might be a year where someone new can actually climb the mountain and win it all instead of choking like you all always do. And I really wish you all the best in that regard. And I really hope that everybody, not just you three, but you three, really choke a lot in the playoffs. Ben, newer, but Zach and Paul, you guys really seems like every year have just a major playoff choke, and I really hope that this might be a year you guys can overcome that and see the benefit of winning it all and feel that joy for working so hard and finally not failing at something. So I wish everybody the best, particularly big chokers in Zach and Paul. Good luck to both of you, especially as you head into rivalry week and play each other next week. So that's something else to really look forward to. But really, I want to talk about the Browns. And no, this isn't supposed to be a Browns-centric episode, but this feels like it deserves special recognition. But this is another notch in one of those all-time, can't believe it happened to anybody, let alone the Browns moments. But in terms of the post-1999, the post-return collapses, this is right up there with what was probably one of the most laughable up to this point in the Dwayne Rudd play. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll give you a brief history lesson. But in 2002, in the Browns opener against the Chiefs, they were clinging to a 2-point lead in the final minutes of the game. Dwayne Rudd was a defender for the Browns, and a group of Browns basically were about to gang tackle the Chiefs quarterback on the final play of the game. At the very last second, he lateraled the running back, and, the the running back didn't get set. This quarterback didn't get sacked. The running back had the ball then. Dwayne Rudd was a defender for the Browns and decided that when he saw the quarterback on the ground, he saw triple zeros on the clock, ripped off his helmet and threw it in celebration. However, the running back still had the ball, hadn't been tackled yet, and so it was still a live ball. The running back gets tackled at like the 30-yard line. The game should be over. But Dwayne Rudd was assessed a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for removing his helmet during a play. And as most of us know, the game cannot end on a defensive penalty unless you decline it. So the Chiefs were given a 15-yard penalty for when the end of the play was, and were given one untimed down, which they kicked a field goal to win the game. That was also the home opener. I think that was the season opener, but this was the home opener. And you can add that to the list of where do we begin. That Ravens blocked field goal return that comes to mind as really an all-time collapse. Any number of openers where we've just gotten our asses kicked completely. But this is one of those things where you're like, the Browns is the Browns, unfortunately. But let's talk about the game. First off, the positives from the game this week for the Browns. Number one, no one died on the field. That's just a fact. Nobody was killed on the field. Number two, a meteor didn't strike the stadium. Again, that's just a fact. There was not a space object of any kind that struck the stadium during the game. But to the actual playing of the game, Jacoby Brissett looked very capable. You can't deny that. Until the pick at the end, which, he should have known the situation. They still had a timeout. A 10-yard completion there, and they can probably try a field goal. But that's probably an example of him just forcing it to something that's not there, trying to make a play. But until that happened, that was about as good as you could expect from Jacoby Brissett. I don't think they can ask him or expect him to play much better than he did on Sunday. Amari Cooper was great. He got open in week one, but he was, he only got targeted a few times. Brissett missed him. Not only did Cooper show he could still get open today, but I think he was targeted 10 times and had 9 receptions, including a touchdown. Really a great game for him, and a proof that, like I said, not only can he still get open, but Jacoby Brissett can apparently get him the ball when he gets open. The run game continued to play well despite, again, they still have the backup right tackle in. Jack Conklin is still recovering from that knee injury. And people forget Nick Harris got hurt in the preseason, and so they really had their backup center in there too. And you really, through the first 2 games, it took longer in week 2 for the run game to really get going, but the run game has been strong through the first 2 weeks of this season. That's about it for the positives. The negatives of this one are numerous and quite literally very bad. First off, we'll start with the defense. I'll start with Myles Garrett on this one. Myles Garrett made 1 tackle. I think he recorded a half sack. I don't know if they gave that to him or not. But outside of that, he was basically a non-factor in this game. I don't remember him having a key pressure. I don't remember him having a big-time play of any kind, really. And especially after Jadeveon Clowney went down, the Jets just sort of shifted protection towards Myles Garrett, and that was it. He was out of the game, which really bothers me for a couple of reasons. One, Myles Garrett is thrown out with the likes of T.J. Watt, with the likes of Aaron Donald, with the likes of the Khalil Mack when he was still an elite player, as, one of these few guys is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Myles Garrett is always in that conversation. He's always in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. One thing I'll say about, T.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, you never really see them taken out of games the way that Myles Garrett kind of gets taken out of games on a fairly regular basis. It seems like especially T.J. Watt, whenever the Steelers need a big player, whenever there's a key situation, he always shows up and always seems to make a play. Aaron Donald, I think in the Super Bowl and throughout the playoffs, you saw that. He wasn't making necessarily plays, but he was really causing a lot of problems for the defense. Myles Garrett does not do that. And he's making so much money that he's too good to be taken out of games like that, and that's a problem. It has to be corrected. And quite frankly, it's disappointing so far to see how bad this great defense, supposedly great defense, has played so far. Denzel Ward is another one here. Also to end on Myles Garrett. Of course, he had to comment. The fans booed them after the game, said it was disappointing, and that the players deserve more respect from the fans. Which, you should have said nothing, but that's probably the worst possible response he could have given in an interview. I don't think he was asked about it, too. I think he just commented on it. But Denzel Ward, here's another story. Again, Denzel Ward signed a $100 million contract, or whatever it was. This is now 2 weeks in a row where in a very critical situation, the Browns have just blown a giant play for a touchdown on defense. In this one, literally the announcer was saying the play before it happened, remember last week when the Browns gave up a huge play, as long as they don't do that again this time, they're probably good. And literally the next play, boom, bomb to Corey Davis, touchdown. We never really found out what happened last week, but apparently we've got more information about what happened this week. Denzel Ward thought they were in cover 2. They were actually in cover 3. And so he let Corey Davis run past him, thinking there was safety help over the top, but there wasn't. And all of a sudden, boom, big play. And the Jets are not only back in it, but they eventually went on going on to win the game. A couple things with that. Listen, I have not played defensive back in the NFL. I barely played defensive back in high school. But I know one thing, and it's that in that game situation, the last thing that you're supposed to do is let a guy get behind you. You're supposed to just play deep, play soft, get underneath. There was so little time left, and they had no timeouts. The only thing that can hurt you is a long touchdown pass. That's exactly what they did. Allegedly, that was the same thing that happened last week. But really, the key thing here is that Joe Woods has to be on the hot seat. Joe Woods, obviously the defensive coordinator. This has been a recurring problem with this team the last couple of years. It's been big plays. It's been an inability to get stops late. And last year we kept hearing, there's a lot of new guys on the defense, a lot of new guys. It'll get better. It didn't really get a lot better. And this year, debatably, they're starting off worse than they have been. They've given up 34 points in the fourth quarter so far this year, including 2 crucial, basically 2-play drives. The Panthers was a 1-play drive for touchdowns that almost cost them the game. But yeah, Joe Woods has not been wild, or has not been spectacular thus far, and I'd be very intrigued if things don't drastically improve if Joe Woods was here at the end of the year. Moving forward, the other bad thing was the clock management and the overall game management late. This is a problem with Kevin Stefanski, especially when your head coach is calling plays. It opens up opportunities for them to fuck up the game management and the clock management. A couple examples here, and these aren't all on Stefanski, but they are just things to consider that potentially, if he was not calling the plays, that would have been addressed for the players to understand. First off, Hunt ran out of bounds late in that drive in the fourth quarter. That stopped the clock. That's another. Again, the Jets had no timeouts when the Browns were doing this. That's 30 seconds right there. That could have made the difference. Nick Chubb scoring that touchdown. People made a big deal about this because Nick Chubb has a history of this. People remember they played Houston a few years ago, and Stefanski called it. He said, I think with no moss is the call. Where basically, just get the first down and get down. And remember what happened. Chubb broke down the sideline and ran out of bounds at the 1-yard line in a wide open touchdown. The Browns, that takes that win probability from 99.9% to 100% because the other team can't take the ball back ever again. If he had gone down at the 1-yard line this time, we'd been in the same situation. Jets had no timeouts again, and the Browns kneel it out and win the game. But he scored. And I know that's Stefanski's fault. I don't know if that was relay. I don't know if that's Chubb's fault for not knowing the situation. I don't know if that's Brissett's fault for not telling him in the huddle. But again, that's another thing to look at. Chubb could have won the game right there, and he's done it before. He knows that's a potential plan for games, and he just didn't do it this time. Moving on. Do NFL teams just not practice what to do during onside kick recoveries? Because quite literally, it seems like these are the only two outcomes for onside kicks. Either the kicker stinks and kicks out of bounds or something crazy like that happens. But if the kicker puts even a halfway decent effort in, it seems like the kicking team always recovers it. Like, apparently, NFL teams have just stopped practicing what to do for onside kick recovery. Amari Cooper seemed to have no idea or be afraid of the ball. He was allegedly trying to knock it out of bounds or do something, but he's not on the normal hands team, I don't think. Or I don't know why. They had their hands team out there. I guess he's on the normal hands team. He's not been on kickoff return for God knows how long. But yeah, of course, fucking Zerline again with that. Or not, wasn't even Zerline. It was the punter with that stupid sideways, watermelon kick thing, and it worked again, of course. And they just got the ball back. And also, as soon as Robert Saleh apparently in the interview said, now this might be hindsight, being 2020, but he said, of course, as soon as they got the ball, he knew they were going to score. He knew the Browns couldn't stop them. And again, let's remind you that this was the New York Jets, and Joe Flacco was their quarterback, a man with cement shoes and a bad offensive line with a fourth-string right tackle because their left tackle got hurt, and the right tackle playing left tackle. That's the Browns' defensive line. There's just great defensive front. Couldn't get around. It couldn't get down. Was cement shoes Joe Flacco. With the really, really unfortunate. And then if you want to talk about how fast the NFL changes things, Cade York was the hero of last week. But all of a sudden is kind of the scapegoat for this week. I mean, he misses that extra point. They're at least going to overtime, and they could have salvaged a potential win. But, he missed the extra point, and they lost by 1. But really the unfortunate thing about this now is that whether you like it or not, Kevin Stefanski is kind of on the clock now. And the problem is that normally, we've questioned, he was a genius his first year. Last year we seemed to question a lot of his play calling. I thought he called a great game from a play calling standpoint on Sunday. But these things have to stop happening. I don't know if he has to start managing the game more or start getting in people's faces or what, but they've done this now a few times, and they've not had success. And I know he won Coach of the Year in his first year, but so did Matt Nagy. Anthony Lynn was the runner-up for Coach of the Year that year. I mean, these things can change fast if you don't get better and if teams figure you out. And especially on defense, the Browns have been figured out. But Pittsburgh has now become an absolute can't lose. I mean, they have to win this game. It might be. I know it's still only week 2, but you look at the schedule, and these were some gimmies, some easy ones they had to have this week, and it's unfortunate that they blew this one. This is also another classic Brown stat. Going into the last game, teams had won 2,299 games in a row when leading by 13 points or more with under 2 minutes to go. The last team to lose was the Browns in 2001, the Chicago Bears. That's just another classic thing the Browns do. People are like, oh, this hasn't happened in 75 years. That was 20 years ago. This hasn't happened in 20 years. Oh, who happened to 20 years ago? The Browns again. They do that all the time. But yeah, I mean, the defense particularly has major problems that have to be addressed. I don't know if they have to simplify the defense or whatnot, but we got problems here. But yeah, I mean, I wore my Browns hat today as like a sign of, it was like a penance. It was like I deserve this. I don't know what I did, but I deserve this, and I must wear this hat as my penance. But yeah, so this was. We joked about this a couple years ago about like a close Browns loss versus like a close Ohio State loss. I mean, I had a visceral reaction to this Browns loss. borderline ruined my entire week. It's fortunate they play Thursday, but then they might lose Thursday, and then I'd just be mad for another 10 days. So who the fuck knows? But yeah, this is up there with everything they've done. This is bad, and it has to get better. And unfortunately, the star players, the guys we're paying a bunch of money to, they're the ones to blame in this one. And the coaching staff is a lot to blame as well. But yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have this week. God fucking damn it. I can't believe they lost that game. Until next week, unless I walk into fire on Thursday after the Browns game, who knows. But until next week, once again, I'm the Commish. So long, folks.
Angry son of a bitch! I'm fucking tired of fucking losing!
You are a factory of sadness!